Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. And hey, did you know that there are Dungeon Dive mugs available on TeePublic? There are. I'm holding one, and you can hold one too if you if you go and buy one if you want one. I really like this Dungeon Dive mug. I use it quite frequently. But today we are going to do the second episode of Diving In. And this episode is called Why I Like Stat Tests. And it is very tangentially related to the first episode of this series on why I like dice. So in that last episode, I talked a bit about how dice add elements of drama and luck. And I really appreciate those things in a game. I then had a very interesting and brief conversation with a viewer in the comments section. And I'm going to read a little bit of that conversation here. It is a public comment, so if you want the full exchange, you can go to that video and look at it for yourself. But they said, you may have helped me with a pretty serious issue I have with dice. The way you stress that dice are about luck and why you enjoy that versus something like a card game, games that are about skill. I think I am confusing in my head those two dynamics. When the dice come up bad, I internally blame myself. I make a direct connection in my head that it is my fault that the dice have come up bad. I blame myself. To that, I responded that I greatly prefer to think of these kinds of games from my character's perspective. They accomplish or fail the things on their adventures. It's like in a traditional RPG, I intensely dislike puzzles that the players are supposed to solve. I am not the hero on the adventure. It's not my intelligence that is being tested, it's my character's intelligence. My character is the hero. It's their intelligence or strength that is being tested, not mine. They're the ones facing the challenge. They're the ones with the stats that will dictate if they succeed or fail. It's up to them. I'm just there to guide them, to roll the dice and see what happens. Personally, I play these kinds of games to find out what happens. It's almost like every kind of game I play is basically a kind of work of interactive fiction. They responded, I guess I could even say that we are playing fate for the characters we are observing. Is it a story of triumph or anguish, failure or defeat? I will try and take this with me. And I think that was just a really good conversation. And it led me to tackle this topic today. So I do prefer games with a lot of luck, and stat tests are involved in that luck because you will take dice, often D20s or D6s, and you will roll and you will compare that to a test. For instance, right now I have a game of Morkborg set up. My character has a 0 plus 0 in presence. And if I'm trying to find something, then I need to take my D20. I will add a +0 and I rolled a 7. Most stat tests in Morkborg are you have a success on a 12 or higher. So I failed that stat test. So my character failed to perceive whatever he was trying to perceive. And so there is luck involved in stat tests, and I do really like that. I am not very good at games. I've said that many times before. Thinking in terms of strategy and tactics are not my strong suits. And I don't get fulfillment out of executing a well-orchestrated plan. I would rather have my character say, okay, what is my character going to do? Roll some dice and play out that procedure after whatever he is trying to do, whatever they're trying to do has been determined. I prefer to see the game from my character's perspective. They are the hero. They are the ones going on the adventures. They are the ones being tested. As the player, I am living kind of vicariously through their actions. Games for me are, again, more about experiencing these kinds of works of interactive fiction. In a recent video I did on Dungeon Quest, I did a few gameplay example turns. And at one point, my character was trying and failing massively to open up a door. And they tried that over and over again. Now, a smart player, somebody other than me, would have given up, would have cut their losses and then tried something new, tried something different. But I joked about how it was my character doing that. My character was stubborn. My character was trying over and over again to open up the door. And if you remember in that video, they finally got the door opened. I finally, I think that one was card draws. So I kept drawing the card. I was like, this bad luck of this card draw. I kept getting the door was closed, the door was locked, and finally the door was open, and the next tile was a portcullis to which blocked the passage still. And I just thought that was really funny. I could see how some people would be really angry at that moment in this game that they were playing, because if you were trying to win and you wanted to rely on your skill, and then the bad luck is just, it's not in your favor, and you've wasted 6 turns trying to get into this hallway only to be further stymied. For me, that was a lot of fun because I imagined it from this really stubborn character's perspective. And so I was able to have fun through that failure, through those repeated times of bad luck made the game fun for me, made that exchange really fun. And that's how I prefer to play most of the games I like to play. And that's why I do like stat tests so much. My character should be the one who is being challenged. I really do dislike it in traditional RPGs when a GM will have the players solve puzzles or riddles. For me, it's really odd and kind of completely pulls me out of the game and kind of breaks my immersion. Why is my intelligence as a player being tested? Shouldn't I be making a stat check for my character? I would prefer if the GM just said, hey, or maybe even if they presented the riddle. Here's a riddle. I don't know, whatever. I don't know riddles, but here's a riddle. You see this riddle written out and you need to solve it. Okay, I'm going to make an intelligence test. If my character can figure it out, then they know the answer. I, as the player, don't need to know the answer. If I'm playing a wizard scholar, my character is way smarter than I am. They should know about all kinds of things. I shouldn't, as the player, have to be forced to figure out intelligent things when I am playing a character who is way more intelligent than I am. And one of the reasons I think why that does kind of break immersion for me is maybe 5 minutes before this riddle, my character was maybe fighting some orcs with some magic spells. But I wasn't doing anything physical at the table. At that point during combat, it was all my character. But for some reason, when it comes to intelligence tests, I, as the player, am being tested. So for some reason, player-focused intelligence tests are okay, but how come player-focused agility tests or strength tests aren't okay at the table? How silly would it be if the GM required the players to lift a 500-pound rock onto the table to simulate a portcullis being forced open? That is a test of the player's strength. So, if you're going to test a player's intelligence, why not also test their strength? What if in order to escape a deadly trap, the GM made the players go outside and run 100 meters under a certain time? Why not make the players jump over a pit that the GM dug earlier in the afternoon to pass an agility test? In real life, stat tests are always focused on intellect. They're always focused on solving puzzles. And a lot of players do just accept that. And I'm sure that a lot of players really do like that. And that's fine. There are different games. There are different types of games. There are different types of execution of mechanisms for every player. That's one of the reasons why I shifted towards solo RPGs when I'm playing RPGs, is so I can be in control of everything. And stat tests are a big part of that. Again, I want my character to be the one experiencing the conflict, not me. I don't want my fun in the game to be hindered by my lack of understanding of tactics or lack of understanding of strategy or my lack of being able to solve a riddle. Those things for me personally, in the way that I like to enjoy games, should not impede my character from being able to figure those things out, because my character might be a great strategist. My character might be into tactics. My character might know how to solve complex riddles. There are some board games that do have some player-focused puzzles, and I can go either way on those. One game that I really do love where the players are forced to pass puzzles, to solve puzzles, to proceed through the game is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. There are those like sliding block puzzles and some other puzzles in the app. And I don't love those, but I don't hate them. At worst, they slow the game down, and I do often cheat on those because when I'm playing solo, in a game of Mansions of Madness, when you're trying to solve a puzzle, you have a certain number of tries based off of your character's stats. So that's kind of cool. Your character's stat still does inform that the solving of that puzzle. But often I will just solve the puzzle quickly and take up a whole character's turn or something like that. Conversely, though, I have seen those specific puzzles in Mansions of Madness do really well at the table with other people. And so, like I said, this is just why I prefer stat tests. If I was designing Mansions of Madness, I would not have included those puzzles. I would have had the puzzles just be another stat test that you have to roll dice for. So there are quite a few games I like with a lot of stat tests. It is one thing that I look for when I am looking at a game. Do the characters in the game have strength and have stats like strength and intelligence and charisma? How are those stats implemented? Games like Shadows of Brimstone and Secrets of the Lost Tomb, Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror, all of those use that kind of D6 dice pool system. So again, this is very tangentially related to the dice episode, but I like all of the stat tests in those games. I think the stat tests in Destinies is interesting because in Destinies, you can kind of spend your stat as a currency to do better. Same as in Zarivia, you can spend a stat to make you have a better chance of passing that test. I really like that. Secret Unknown Stuff, Escape from Dulce has a lot of good stat tests. You're always rolling dice and always having stat tests in that game. That's one of the major focus of that game. A lot of the Black Oath Entertainment games like Disciples of Bone and Shadow and God Shard / Broken Shores. And one I'm going to take a look at soon here, Rift Breakers. I like the stat tests in those games, and also Call of Cthulhu, if I didn't mention that, when they have a lot of skills, and your skills are derived from your character's profession. You know, in Call of Cthulhu, if you are a journalist, you might be really good at searching out clues or tracking people. Or, you know, if you're a pugilist in that game, a boxer, you might have a better chance at hand-to-hand fighting. And you have all of these different skills that are very specific kinds of stat tests that you roll to see if your character can accomplish the things that they are trying to accomplish. And all of those stat tests, all of these games that have a really unique, or not unique, but that have an abundance of stat tests also tend to have a lot of random encounters. So as you can see, you know, we had dice. Dice was moving into the stat tests, and now the stat test is probably moving into the next topic of this series, and that will be random encounters. And all of these different mechanisms, all of these different things that I enjoy in games, that we enjoy on the Dungeon Dive as viewers and as players, you know, a lot of these things are intertwined and they all kind of feed off of each other. So yeah, so let me know in the comments, do you like being challenged as the player when it comes to puzzles? Do you like solving riddles? Do you like solving puzzles in place of your character doing it? How do you feel about stat tests? Do you want your character to do everything, or do you want to also have some of your own player input? Just let me know in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.